Okay, we're recording. Does it tell you that?
It does.
Okay. And then I think last time I did this too, but usually I do the transcription too, but so it may tell you that in just a second as we're getting started. But you're at home, like you're moved back home, right?
Completely. Yeah. Well, I moved back home. I'm not unpacked, but I'm home.
How's that feel?
Amazing. That's great. Yeah.
It's
great. It's be more like, unpacked, all like organized how I like to be. It still feels a little disruptive, but
you
okay.
do you feel like you've found yourself capable in terms of your injury, like to get around and stuff?
Yeah. Today is my first day that I felt like, oh, if I was my normal self, I could move a lot faster and get a lot more of this stuff done.
Yeah.
And so actually feeling a little frustrated just with like what my par level is and like what I'm probably like, oh, I probably don't need to be like jumping up every second and trying to like get a little something unpacked or like, that just harder. So
Yeah.
womp womp.
Well, it's nice that at least there's a little bit less to do to get Riley out the door with all of the changes in his food and stuff, right? That helps.
Yes. Yes. And the drive is like 2 seconds.
Ugh.
So that's phenomenal. Yeah. And he's been pretty good. So that's been.
Did he sleep? You said he slept through the night 2 nights ago. How was he last night?
He slept until 4:30. So that was better.
Okay.
And then he was up earlier, but it's okay. Like he went back to sleep and then he got up early.
Oh yeah.
But it's okay. We're working on it. But so he decided to also start peeing in the potty. So that's like,
wow, he's just helping you out.
Like one thing at a time. Yes, but it's like a little bit of manipulation, but then he's been more successful. So it's like in the middle of the night when you wake up, he really just wants to get out of his room.
Mm.
And I know, but then I was like, okay, we'll go right to the potty. And then when he actually does go potty, I'm like, great.
They can outsmart us, can't they?
I know. No. So.
Oh, well, I'm glad that you are working towards being more settled and all these changes I know have been so challenging, but yeah, it's got to feel like a little bit of a deep breath. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Good. Well, any 911s this morning. We started that time last time and that was kind of where we went, which was great. But anything that's pressing this morning before we go into checking in on homework and stuff?
No, I think it'll all be addressed and all of that.
Okay. Well, last time when we checked in, one of the things that kind of is an ongoing thing you were going to focus on was just holding that boundary between specifically you and Amanda.
Yes.
Excuse me. How has that felt? How has it been since we last talked last week?
Yeah, I feel like that's a little bit where I am this morning. I'm like, oh, maybe it's going to be good. But I feel like I wanted to have more of my like thoughts gathered in the way that, okay, so what day did we talk last week? Thursday?
I think it might have been exactly a week ago. I'll look, but.
Okay. I think that's right. Okay, right? So we talked on Tuesday. Yeah, that's right. We talked on Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then I sent an email out to my staff that was asking, kind of like recapping our Friday meeting and then letting them know the ideas that we did come up with ish, like just putting them in a communicative form because everybody wasn't there. And then said to reach out to me in whatever form by the end of the day on Wednesday if there's anything additional I needed to like be aware of or know. Because one of the girls had already sent me a revised version of what I proposed on Friday. And then the same girl reached out to have a Zoom conversation and to give like a little, almost even like to speak for the team. You know, these are our questions. So that was great. Got those. And then Amanda's been checking in, and this is like the part where I'm like, this is not a boundary, but I don't really know where to draw this line. So on Friday, Amanda called and said, you know, what do you have going on this afternoon? So I was telling her the things that I was going to be doing. And then she's like, because I think I need to come over so that we can work on critical staffing stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. So my boundary holding at that point was, these are the things I had plans to work on. And like, I have a couple of meetings that need to happen. And then one of the meetings, she was like, oh, well, maybe that person, like maybe the three of us could talk together. And it had to have been Thursday then. It was Thursday. No, it was Wednesday. Anyways, it doesn't matter what day it was. I think it was Wednesday. The girl that wanted to have the Zoom call, Amanda was like, well, maybe we could just all talk together. So then I reached out to the girl and I was like, hey, I'm happy for it to be just you and I. Amanda and I have a meeting after. She'd asked if she could join our meeting. I didn't know, or I wanted to ask you if you'd prefer it to just be you and I, or if it'd be helpful for her to join to hear whatever it is you have to say. And she's like, no, I think I just want it to be you and I. And I was like, okay. So I told Amanda, her and I had the meeting. And then I told Amanda that it had to have been on Wednesday because we had case managers coming over at 4:30. So that, and my sister was picking Riley up and bringing him home so that we could meet his case manager. So I told Amanda, if you're coming over, like this is the time frame I have. But it just felt really weird. Like nothing, I don't know why we had to be in person. Like we could have absolutely done it this way. I've done lots of meetings this way. Like Allison and I did our cross coverage calendar meeting this way. Like it just felt very like, why do you have to, like you're checking in on me on a level that like isn't necessary, if that makes sense. But she came over here and it was almost like me walking her through what our coverage plan could be or needs to be, but we didn't get as far as like I would have liked, and then just dropped it from there. So it feels like almost like she's procrastinated me getting anywhere. Like she wants to be filled in. She wants to be a part of some of these things. We did make some phone calls that were kind of important, but I already have meetings set up with these people. So then it's like, oh. So I just feel very much like, okay, it's been a week and tomorrow's staff meeting. So I got another email from the girl that I talked to. She's like, do we have any updates on this? And I was like, oh, we'll probably, or my plan is to go over them in staff meeting. So then I forwarded to Amanda to say like, I might need a part of the meeting where we excuse the rest of staff and just the dietitian stay so we can talk about this coverage meeting. And she picks up the phone and calls me, and our diet technician, who has a 2-year associate degree, called in. She's been sick yesterday and today she's supposed to staff that formula room that's like downstairs, makes this formula. Amanda's like, I'm not going to be able to do any planning for staff meeting. I'm not going to be able to do any of staff meeting stuff because I got to go staff the formula room. I'm like, okay, well, I'll still plan on moving forward with coverage plan that can be communicated tomorrow. So I'm just like a little bit frustrated. I think there's a wasp inside my house, right on my window.
You can take care of it. Go ahead.
I'm gonna see if I can close the blinds and trap it in.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm gonna watch him the whole time and it's gonna freak me out. Surely he'll stay in there, right? So good. So I feel like now it's all on me to develop this, and I feel like when you and I talked, I had a very clear picture of what that was going to look like. And of course, there's going to be little pieces that are going to change it, but then I don't feel like she's helped at all. It's just been more of a, she's held me back a little bit more, if anything. Like some of our conversations, I'm like, oh, this is good. I'm communicating that to her. But instead, like, I wish I would have just talks to Brandon, but I really feel like I shouldn't, because if she's reaching out, that should be my chain of command. But then she doesn't get anything further for me. You know, she doesn't get answers. And so I'm having to tell her things like they're wanting a timeline for this compensation. So, and she's like, well, there isn't one. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work. Like, there's got to be some kind of, even if there's not a compensation plan right now, but we're waiting to get to be, instead of 13 million in the hole, we want to be 10 million in the hole. And then a compensation plan will be reviewed. Like, there's got to be something that we can give and not just say there's nothing. So I feel like I'm communicating to her what staff wants answers on, and then her answers are answers that I'm not okay giving back. And so I feel like it's just like it delayed the process of everything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so just to clarify, you, I might have missed this, but where you interjected her into this process, was you got this feedback and from your staff, you reached out to them by email and asked them to clarify a few things or give further information. And then did you do something with that? Like, did you go to her with that? Okay, so
No.
Okay, so but she's interjecting herself into the staffing plan. Is that what it is?
Yeah, well, it's like she's well aware of
Yeah.
leaving. So like with these 2 additional people leaving, and then we've been having interviews, like she's in on some of that. So she knows the state of our department. So I think she's reaching out to me too, to be like, oh my gosh, like what, we do have to come up with a plan. Like it's very apparent that we need some kind of plan.
Okay.
So, but she was out the week prior, right? That last week when you talked. So it's like she got back, been doing who knows what, and then all of a sudden decides what feels like all of a sudden decides. I don't know what she's been doing, but all of a sudden it's like, we are in this critical, what are we going to do? I need to come over. So then I kind of talked through some of the points with her. We didn't get any further than where I already was. So just like more time meeting to go over where I already was, and then me expressing some concerns that I need answers on, and her just giving, which is very typical, these like flat out answers that are like, we just can't, there isn't one. There, like, we don't want, that's what feedback has been for years and years. We want you to go to bat for these things, or give us an explanation that makes sense. Not in your head, but like the real explanation. So I feel like what I'm now doing on the day before staff meeting, as I'm told she's not even going to be in staff meeting, is deciding where we need to prioritize things, which I think the monthly staff meeting has lots of pieces to it, and I could work on all of it, but that's probably not going to be as important as this one piece. So I probably should focus time and energy and efforts on this,
on the staff
coverage, and
coverage.
on more of like the coverage plan, like what are we doing? Because I think I know they want to hear a couple of things. One, we keep losing people. We know it's a compensation thing. Doesn't matter if we're going to do this quiet hour, like all these other things we could do to make it feel better. Great. Well, yes, let's do some of them. But we want to know, is compensation going to be considered in the next 3 months, 6 months, a year? Like people want a timeline-ish. And then what are we going to do? Like, what is our plan now? So it's like, we know that compensation is going to be the high priority. We have a timeline. And then in the meantime, these 2 people are leaving this month, as well as what's some of our training plan going to be for that, because they're pretty high acuity areas. So that's what I need to make.
So, a couple things I hear, and just kind of want to ask you, like, what would be helpful today to talk through, and I'm sure to some extent they feel interwoven, but we kind of talked about maybe a boundary issue with Amanda coming over, and so a boundary issue there. Sounded like you have an imminent issue, obviously, with coverage and staffing. And then also just planning for this staff meeting is another one. And then just in general, I think Amanda and this whole feedback loop and not making progress, what would feel helpful to kind of address first today?
Today. I think what were the three? The boundary piece, the staffing piece, and
well, I think really there's four. Then there's staff meeting, and then there's just Amanda and the feedback process.
Part of me is like, first I was thinking, okay, we're gonna solve all our problems, my problems in this 1 hour meeting. But then the other part of me is like, or do I need to just like put that aside? Like I can work on some other things so that doesn't feel like I do think maybe some of the boundary setting, like some of the working stuff out with Amanda. I think my kind of plan is to go back and look at my original plan that was created with you of like, do I reach out to Brandon now? Hey, Amanda's in the formula room today. I'm planning for staff meeting. Here's some of the questions I had. I was hoping to get some answers from you. I went ahead and put a meeting on our calendar if we have some shared time that we can meet today, this afternoon. If that works for you. If it doesn't, I know it is kind of time sensitive since it's tomorrow at noon. If that time doesn't work, wanted to see if I can get some of these questions answered. Or actually, before I even write the questions out, I'll probably just say, look, I'd like to plan on meeting then. If that doesn't work, I can send it written so that we could get them answered before tomorrow. So like that's going to help some of that. And then the other staffing piece, I can get a good outline, and it can be a little bit of a feedback working meeting because it's not our grand staff meeting. It's like just like I'm going to cut out some of that stuff. So I think I can do that.
I love that idea. How's that feel?
It feels way more manageable. Like talking through, I just felt very just like, why is it Tuesday and this is where I am? And even like telling you that story of how all the things happen, I'm like, this is where I am and why I am. And this is like, I feel like I'm very encouraged getting off the meeting with you last Tuesday with this like great plan. And then to see how this like, I'm realizing the pattern of how I feel and work, which is very encouraged and very like forward moving, and then feeling like what happened that we're all these steps back, but still don't have the answers. And I like to communicate in a time sensitive way with information that is valuable. And I feel like what happens is the time sensitive part goes away when Amanda gets involved, because she's always like, oh, we're waiting, or they're, and then, and her answers are just like, not answers. They're just, okay, so what are we gonna talk about today?
Well, just to pause while you're thinking through that, just to say, like, I think that's a great plan, Michelle. Like the thing that you just laid out, I mean, reflectively on conversations we've had before, you really wanted more control over staff meeting. And although this isn't necessarily how you thought you would get it, you do have it for tomorrow. And so I think, what I hear you saying is like, I'm not going to necessarily ask permission from Amanda on how to do this. She's told me she can't be there. And I'm taking the responsibility, and I believe it's best for these things to get answered. And so I'm going to have this push towards Brandon to see if, I did go to Amanda. And so if she says, why did you go to Brandon? And say, well, you didn't seem to have an answer. So I'm going to Brandon and hopefully getting some answers. Because even telling your staff that I've had this conversation with Brandon and these are some steps is what feels like you said, it doesn't have to be that you provide them the firm answer, but you give them some concrete things. And so I think I just wanted to encourage you that, like, I think you've just kind of problem solved. And doing that, you actually put a boundary in place. But between, I mean, can you see that so I just wanted to say, like, I think that's probably why you feel like, okay, this is much a better plan, because you made a decision to put that boundary there and move forward and plan this thing and form it. And and so when you talk about what can you control is kind of the conversation we've had, like, what is yours to control? Like, you can't probably change the fact that Amanda slows things down.
Yeah.
You know, but what's within your control? And I think you're taking that and doing a great job with it.
Well, so one thing she did this morning, I was like, again, I think I was caught off guard because it's not the way I would imagine a boss to talk to somebody, and it's not the way I talk to really anybody. So when she called me to say I'm in formula room, she like just tells me that, like, and I'm in formula room, so I'm gonna have no time to work on staff meeting. Pause, stop. Like my response, like I almost want to say, okay, you'll be in formula room. You have no time to work on staff meeting tomorrow. And then me pause, like say it back to her. Because is she looking for me to say, like, what is she, you know, like, is she looking for me to say, okay, I got staff meeting, no problem. Is there anything specific that you want to be mentioned? I mean, what I ended up saying in the moment was, I got staff meeting. I think what's most important is this coverage issue, so we can just focus on that right now. Fine. But she never says, oh, yes, take that. Like, there's never a, I have no idea what she was thinking or why she was even telling me that. Right. So I just kind of gave her an answer, which this time it works out for me because yes, I would like to do staff meeting. But at the same time, if I have a whole staff meeting, I probably would have been planning before the day before for all the different pieces.
Yeah. So what is a way you could respond that would feel good for you? So if I'm her and I say, hey, Michelle, I'm in the formula room. I'm not going to have time for anything today, and including staff meeting.
Yeah.
What would be a way for you to respond?
Yeah. I think I was like, I'm happy to use staff meeting. Or like, should I not even say that? Like, what are you asking of me?
That's a great question. How would that feel? Or
like, why do I have to say, why do I even have to say that? That's how that feels. It feels annoying and frustrating that I'm even having to say, what do you need me to do?
Yeah. Tell me, because why? What's behind that?
Because she is the director and she needs to be able to communicate what needs to happen and what she can ask nice. I mean, she can include me, but her just stating facts and leaving this big ambiguity again feels like there's no direction and like where are you wanting to cancel staff meeting? But sometimes I'm scared to ask her, so what do you want to do? Because I'm like, if she probably would say, oh, let's just cancel it, or let's just, and I'm like, nah. So I think sometimes I'm scared to ask because her answer might be something that's like totally not, but she never tells me like what she needs me to do. I don't know. Is that clear at all? So why do I not want to ask that? Because I feel like I shouldn't have to ask it, but obviously I do because she's not giving me the answer. So I guess I could just say, what do you need me to do?
Yeah.
But then also it's also saying that like, I don't know. Like, I feel like I know something. Like, what do you need me to do? Like, I'm not that employee that just expects like, oh, what do you need me to do? Like, I don't like that in most relationships too. You know, it's like, oh, let me know if you need anything. It's like, no, you see the need, you jump in and you do it, and you know, so I don't really want that to be my response. That's where I struggle, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think you kind of, if you combine what you just said too, I think you kind of just, you hit the nail on the head. Like I mean, I think what I hear you saying is, I shouldn't have to ask. What you're really wanting is leadership, real leadership. Or you want to have the ability to be the real leader. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm just like sitting back because of her inability to lead, that I'm just like, well, let me know.
Yeah.
Like, that feels like I'm also playing alongside of her, can't lead.
Yeah.
Ish.
Do you have an avenue to resolve this, or to get help with this particular issue of her lack of leadership and your lack of ability to lead in her stead, like where she's in her vacuum?
I guess my only avenue would be Brandon, I mean, we have the director of human resources, where the problem is like we have lots of meetings that are me, Amanda, director of human resources, Brandon, our human resources liaison. And Amanda's just been there for so long. Like, I feel like she has these kind of friendships with the director of human resources, the other Karen,
Yeah.
Karen and Brandon. And she definitely, part of me like has a little bit less of a respect for both Brandon and Karen because of they've had enough experience with her to know that some of these things are there. Like, I don't really need to tell them. And they've had tons of feedback from years and years and years of staff. So I wouldn't be telling them something that they totally don't know. It just feels very like, and I'm not trying to work against her. I don't know. I feel like I've made little comments to Brandon before, like, how do I work with this? And I've painted it in a way that's like not disrespectful, but just like, how do I work with this? And he's given me like some solutions, but just like, almost like, that's just another position that needs to be filled. Like, I don't know what they're like, why they're not wanting to do anything about that lack of leadership. So as far as another avenue, like, I wouldn't know where else to go other than that.
Okay. Well, and I kind of took you off path there, but because you were talking about how to comment back to her, but I was saying you kind of have it wrapped in there. That you don't want to ask her because you don't really have confidence in her answers, like meaning you don't trust her judgment in those things. You also don't want to ask what that means, like what you need to do, because that's not the type of employee you want to be. And so it kind of feels like you get stuck. You say that's true. You feel stuck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so I want to just check in with you because a minute ago you said, well, I don't know if I want to talk about all this stuff because I can resolve some of it. And you have a good plan, I know, for staff meeting, and that seems like you'll talk through a little bit of the staff coverage and stuff, but do you want to keep going in this part of the conversation, or did you want to switch gears before?
No, I think this is good, because I think if we did switch gears, we'd probably go look at development plan stuff. And the number one priority was to work on like processes and procedure and all that. And I feel like some of that, like, this is going to be helpful in moving forward with that. So,
okay. So that
would you agree?
Yeah, that's great. Whatever. I think that's a fine plan. Yeah. And I think there are definitely intertwined. So, yeah. So I said that word stuck and you said, yeah. So
yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I think I need to be more crafty in my responses to her. Stuck in that, like, I don't want to become somebody that I'm not being, meaning that, like, I don't want to say, well, what do you need of me? Because that's like not my, but I don't want to always give her the answers. But I think I felt that question in the moment, like, is this a time where I can just ask her, like, what are you asking of me? Or is it sometime where, like, this one might have been one that's okay, that I went ahead and said, hey, this is what I'm thinking. Because it's like, this is the opportunity that I need, and this was like an answer. But there's some things, like if she was calling about safety and telling me I'm in formula room and like I need to do that 9 o'clock meeting, I could say, okay, well, what are you asking? Like, what do you need me to do? I could ask her that and not feel so like, I don't know, there might be a more appropriate times for me to ask her, okay, I don't know.
Yeah. So
what do you want me to do?
Yeah. So if she calls and says, I think the example you just gave was, I'm going to be in the formula room. I can't go to the safety meeting. Is that what she would say? Like, she'd make it a statement.
Yeah.
But you don't think she would follow it up and say, could you join the call? Right. So.
But I'm also supposed to say, like, okay, so that's safety meeting stuff is like her responsibility. So I just say, okay, well, I have my work cut out for me today, but I'm happy to jump in where you need me. Let me know where that is.
Yeah. So what would it look like to say, like, if she said, I'm gonna be in the formula room and so not in the safety meeting, if you just said, okay, what would happen, do you think? If you just said, okay, do you think she would make an assumption that you're gonna join the call?
Mm-hmm.
So if you said okay and just let the silence there, you said, okay. She said, all right, well, I'll talk to you later. Maybe then your question could come in. Well, hold on. Are you, just to clarify, are you asking me to join the safety call, or did you already have it taken care of?
Mm-hmm.
Like you could pause and just see if by
Yeah.
not jumping to solve it or make an
Mm-hmm.
assumption or even ask a question, just to acknowledge, use an okay. And if you
Yeah.
do like the okay, like question mark, you know, like the intonation, I just wonder, what would that feel like? I mean, do you think you know what would happen
Yeah.
next? Okay. And she says,
So but you said like, okay, well, I'm gotta go. Like, I feel like that would be
normal.
Yeah.
And then, but then you could clarify, well, hang on, were you saying that, were you saying that because you needed me, you wanted to ask me to join in your absence, or did you already have it
Yeah.
taken care of? Like, oh, I was assuming could you do it? Well, let me check, or yes, I can. I don't have enough, whatever it is,
Is it weird to say, she says, I'm going to be in formula room today. I won't be able to plan for staff meeting. Is it weird for me to say, what else did you have? What else were you going to be doing today? Like, I almost like how I couldn't just stop my day and go jump into the formula room without having to cancel multiple things. And like, so I kind of wonder, which, I mean, I need to figure out, I wonder just because it's like, no one thinks she does much. Like, what else was she going to do? How can she just stop and go do that? And part of me wants to know what she does too, to know, like, am I doing all of her job? Or are there all these other things I don't know that she's doing? That's taken as a whole different route. But like, I almost wanted to say, oh, other than planning for tomorrow, like, what is she doing?
Yeah, well, there's probably like I guess let me ask you, what would be the healthy way to have that conversation? What would that look like? If you have a real curiosity, or what's driving it? Let me ask that. What's driving that question? Because you mentioned something behind there. One of it is like, are you doing anything, and am I doing all your work, right?
Yeah. We did that division of responsibility on purpose to try to figure out, like, oh, what all is everybody doing? Because all the meetings we had, it felt like my list was a mile long, and we never went over her stuff because we never asked back, right? We'd be in these meetings at 4, and I would be creating what the leads need to do, and we'd be discussing like what I'm doing because I want to have that transparency, and I do feel like it affects them some. But then we'd all be looking at her like, what part of what are you doing? And so then we just said, oh, this would be a great idea. What if we went ahead and just listed out our division of responsibility thing? I feel like you were the one that said I could ask human resource. I got all of our job descriptions before we did that. Which mine and hers are very basic and vague. Like, there's not much in them.
So you, going back to your word stuck, which, I mean, we can talk about, specific scenarios of how you get out of, like, when even the staff meeting one, right? Because what you've communicated to me is that you want either leadership, like effective leadership, or the ability to effectively lead, but it feels like you can't do either in your current circumstances. And so you feel stuck.
Right.
So let's zoom out for a minute, not in the specific, like, phone calls and common conversations, to the bigger picture of feeling stuck. What's going to unstick you?
Yeah. So I think either somebody in her position that can lead would be awesome, or if I was in her position, I would need somebody in my position, because that's what we've seen. Like, we don't think anyone can lead well in her position alone. Like, we are too big of a department for you to be the leader, creating 3 or 4 different schedules, because you're over dietitians, you're over lactation consultants, you're over the formula room. Like, that's why the dietitians need a manager, because that's too much to manage as the director and all these things. So I will not be able to effectively lead in her role by myself, because nobody can. So I either need somebody in her role with somebody in my role, or like I can be either of them. I don't care. But this isn't going to work.
Okay. That's a pretty big statement. This isn't gonna work.
Mm-hmm.
What does that
I
mean?
know. Or I'm like, okay, do I need a new job, or do I need to figure out how to manage, focus on the positive things that I'm able to do in this role, and then just stay in this stuckness, because there are some benefits to being here. That's
What
where
are
I
those?
kind
Tell
of
me
feel
about
like
the benefits.
that when I worked there 3 days a week, and was also doing sports nutrition or private practice. And then when I interviewed for this role, I was like, she said it had to be a full-time role. And I said, okay, but I'd like to work 1 day remote and 4 days on campus. There's not a lot of positions where you can do that in the like hospital administration dietitian world. So like, that is a huge plus, and I would even love that to be able to grow more. But also, I need most of my staff there, but they also have a remote day now post COVID. So I think a benefit is I'm in a managerial role that I do have some flexibility, regardless if I have her complete blessing on it. Like, there's things I'm like, I can do this in this remote if I need to. That's just to give you my list of like the things that I don't think I'll find somewhere else, kind of.
These benefits, yeah, you just said, I could either, when you said this isn't going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what are your options? And you said, I can either find a new job or focus on the positive, because there's a lot of benefits. I just wanted to hear, what are those benefits?
Yeah.
And you said flexibility.
Yeah. I also feel like she doesn't give me feedback at all, good or bad. But I do feel like, because she doesn't hold herself to any kind of whatever expectations, I don't ever feel like she's I know I'm like a higher performer than she. Like, I don't feel any kind of threat in this role, if that makes sense. I don't know if it's threat or like, I don't ever feel like I'm like not doing, like, I feel like you could be in a role where it's like, I can't, and it doesn't matter what I'm doing, I'm just never doing enough, or I'm never doing it right. Like, there's plenty of positions I've been in where it's like, I could have a bad leader in a different way. Does that make sense? Where you're just constantly feeling like, my bad leader is lack of leadership, which, while that is frustrating and I feel stuck, it also could be different. It could be bad in a different way. Like, do I want to, I realize that, like, I'm not going to go to fairy tale land. Like, you're always exchanging some bad for some other bad, and some good for some potentially other good. And so, am I willing to exchange my bad for other issues? That's kind of how I look at it. Like,
well,
and that's where I kind
of, could it be possible that, because you kind of described that whole, like, the devil I know versus the devil I don't, right? Like, could it be possible, though, that in a different scenario, you have a good leader? And when you say you always have bad, your leader isn't your only problem currently.
True.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So it'd be like lots of things. Yeah, true.
I feel like you've communicated staffing is an issue. I mean, money, compensation, like, so within staffing, you have not enough, you're not able to pay, you're not able to hire up that talent you need. So,
Can't train.
so yeah, so going back to that question, this isn't going to work, I'm stuck. How do we get unstuck?
Look at other options.
And are there options where you are? Like, meaning, are there options to get unstuck where you are? And what does that pathway look like?
Get a different person in Amanda's position would be one way to get unstuck. Find a completely different role at my hospital, but I don't know what that would look like. I don't know what I'm to do. I could, quote unquote, just be a dietitian, but I don't know that it's going to unstick me, because I'm still going to see all the issues and want to be doing them, and it'll be really hard to like just do that, and my pay would be cut. Further stuck in another way. Yeah.
Do any of those seem viable?
I think not really. And even if any of those did work, like if I found another position in a different department, or if I, like, we're still going to have the big Methodist issue that I've been frustrated with, right? That's going away. So no, gotta go. I'm gonna go. I do tonight with 10 people, all director and manager level of all the
Today?
night. Yeah.
Okay.
So, and I don't think she's going, which that's also interesting, because she would technically be invited, but everyone has to send RCPs to me. I've gotten all the RCPs. I haven't gotten hers. So, I mean, that's an opportunity.
Where are those people from? Like, generally speaking, hospitals?
Yeah. So like the person who's retiring, the director at St. Jude, her and I fell up to this.
Yes.
So she'll be there. The nutrition director from Regional 1, the nutrition director from St. Francis, the University of Memphis. There's two different people. One's like the internship coordinator, and the other one is like the department head for nutrition. The VA hospital clinical director and the VA hospital clinical internship coordinator.
UT Health or no? Anybody from there?
What?
Anybody from UT Health Medical Center? No.
I don't think.
Baptist?
No. UT Health wouldn't. Well, I don't know that they wouldn't have anybody, but I think all their physicians are in institutions that have their people, right? Like UT, like we have all their.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And all there, so like there wouldn't be.
It would only be like a researcher or something, maybe.
Yeah.
And Baptist, no, nobody from Baptist.
I don't think who's in that Baptist role. I think one of the people in the Baptist role is, I don't know why I think you know her, Christy Ferguson. Anyways, no, she hasn't responded. We went to high school together.
Okay. Okay, so what I heard you want to go back, because you kind of said something. You said, no, I gotta go.
Yeah.
What?
So just do.
Well, no, what does that feel like to say that? What is that? That was kind of a big statement.
Yeah. I feel like I've been looking at jobs, like, but I just feel like there's nothing really available. At the diabetes walk on Saturday, there were multiple different companies there that have like different insulin pump companies or continuous glucose monitor or whatever. So I talked to several of them, but I have relationships with most of them. And so one of them that I could potentially see myself working with, I did say, hey, do y'all have any open positions? they don't right now, because she's the one I would want to be. Like there's like, you have a territory or a district, like that's her. And I don't want to move right now for any, like, because that's tricky. So I think I feel I'm not so liberated thinking I need to go. I think it's like a little bit more confirming when I like talk through the like, okay, these are my options if I stay and it still doesn't feel great. But I feel like I've been looking at options to go, and I don't really feel like I see a ton of promising anything, but I can keep looking, keep networking, I don't know.
Where, so we have about what, 10 minutes left.
Yeah.
And
Give me my homework.
well, no, before we do though, where do you have, when you think about those pathways, right? Because we talked about the pathways, if you stay, is a new person in Amanda's position. I can take a step back and be just a dietitian, or I can look for another role in the hospital. You said they don't seem viable because they still have the big Methodist issues, so gotta go. But you've named a couple pathways there still, just to recognize. Or I gotta go, but you said I've been looking, but doesn't feel like anything's available because they're either taken or I might have to move, etc. But which one do you feel like more energized by? Like which one excites you more? Or feels that there's more possibility?
I don't know. I don't think one over the other.
Okay.
Like some parts of me think, I feel like there's lots of other things going on in my life, and I had to have one thing that feels stable, which is, I know this job isn't stable, but it's at least controllable, known. I'm not having to put a ton of energy in like meeting people, right? Like it's like I know all my staff, I know people in the hospital, I know Amanda, like I know how to make this work. So like all these other changes and things that need to get addressed, like adopting Riley, getting back into my house, like that stuff feels more manageable than a new job with all of that. But like best case scenario, I win the lottery and I get to stay home with 1 million kids and do all my dietitian stuff like pro bono, just like go talk at a church, go talk and do this, go do like all these things, which that's, when I die and go to heaven, maybe I can do nutrition talks up there when we eat all of our manna. I don't know, but so like I feel like that's what excites me. Like I love being able to like do that kind of outreach and not have to do it for money and have the flexible schedule to do it, but that's not realistic unless I just try to go find a husband, but that's the wrong reason to find a husband. So I don't know. I guess I can be thinking on that, like which one excites me more.
Yeah, I think that and the 3 pathways, if you stay, like a new person in Amanda's position, that would require, it sounds like what you said before, it would require you talking to Brandon very upfront and being very frank about the lack of leadership in the department, and that you really believe either he needs to replace her and with somebody who has better leadership skills, or and that could be you or someone else, but that you would need these 2 leadership roles to run holistically as an organization. So it sounds like you can have that conversation. I don't know where it gets you or not, but that's, you kind of said that was your way potentially forward. I mean, taking a step back as just a dietitian is obviously a choice you could make if it fit. But like you said, you would still have frustrations, but you wouldn't have the responsibility to fix them. So you would be giving up that. You would also have less money, which I don't know if that's feasible or not, right? And then another role in the hospital. I don't know what those look like either, but you could take the pathway of looking at HR and seeing what they have available and kind of beginning to investigate that route and see what's there. And it could be even potentially that in your conversation with Brandon being able to say, like, I feel like we're at a point, like, and I don't know how frank you want to be, but
yeah.
And even, you're talking to him today and about staffing potentially, even ending that conversation to be able to say something like this. At some point, I'd really like to talk to you about like how staffing pertains to me. Like I don't know if I can continue to operate in the role that I'm in with the staff that we have and the leadership void, or, and so I also would like to know if there's other options in the hospital. I don't know if you want to put that out there, but you know, so those pathways can be pursued, with some move, like steps. And then you have the other pathway of looking. And I think you brought it up, like that you're having dinner with a lot of important people tonight that have a lot of connection, and that you could potentially begin to network there, and find out. I mean, and I think it's important to what you said too, which is I have a lot of other things in my life. This feels stable. And so, there's no pressure for you to do these things if it's not the right timing. And also just to affirm for you that doing some of these things doesn't mean you have to jump ship tomorrow.
Yeah.
Manageable.
I do though. I go back and forth with the just because you're in an abusive relationship doesn't mean that's comfortable. You shouldn't leave it. And I don't feel like it's that bad. I'm not losing sleep over any of it. It's frustrating, but to think of it as an unknown, it could be these things, but like you were saying, feel like it could be positive, right? So it's don't stay uncomfortable when you have all these reasons that it's bad. I think that's kind of,
and I love what you said. I mean, you were being silly when you said it, but to some extent, but I wish I could win the lottery and stay home with 1 million kids and basically do this nonprofit community type of work. I don't know if you have given any thought to what exists out there on a national level. You're thinking, I mean, the diabetes thing is a little bit more global or whatever, but what else is out there that you could use nutrition for, that would be a national organization, but you're representing locally, or that you work remotely? What else is out there? Expanding your parameters a little bit to explore and dream. Maybe there is a nonprofit that you could be working for, so I think lean into that where you get excitement and be like, I don't know. I mean, I don't know. And I think, so I think, I think the thing for homework is really, if you were to really sit down and think through the three things you mentioned, if you stay, replacement of Amanda, stepping down or looking for another opportunity. And then if I'm going to leave, maybe even identifying a brainstorming, all of these 10 people, for example, that would be somebody to start networking with, but also doing some exploration within the diabetes world, doing some exploration within the nutrition world, expanding my borders globally and looking online and doing some research. And also you can take steps like getting your resume ready, it doesn't have to be you're committed. And so I think maybe just I mean, how do you feel about thinking about those 2 lanes and the different aspects in those lanes, these, if you decide you do want to kind of run them in parallel, even I'm going to have a conversation with Brandon. I'm going to go ask HR about this job, but I'm also gonna, I don't know. What does that feel like to think through those?
Yeah. A good plan.
Okay. And I don't think that there's necessarily a measurable on it. I mean, I think, it's not come back next week and have talked to all 10 of those people and find out what they're, but it's, I think it's sitting and reflecting a little bit on those 2 things and knowing that if I'm going to do these, it entails me doing this. And so am I willing to do that? And vice versa. But I think just to kind of reiterate, you kind of came to some, I'm stuck. I gotta go. I mean, maybe I don't want to trade my stability right now because of other things in my life, but ultimately I don't think those things are shifting. So what am I going to do about it? And knowing that I'm either going to hold exactly where I am and stop feeling like expecting to change, or I'm going to go, I'm going to create change somewhere else,
Great. Hey, this is one random thing. I had a conversation with, I do a phone interview before I bring them in for a shadow and an interview actually. And so the girl I talked to last week, I'm like, oh my gosh, her resume looks pretty promising. She's been a dietitian for 15 plus years, blah, blah. she is currently in the director role at St. Francis Hospital. She was in a manager role. The director retired and she stepped into it. And I was like, oh, so just tell me like why you applied for a position with us, like why now, why Le Bonheur, what's your pediatric? And she just basically went in this whole story about they're not compensated well, they're short staffed, they have turnover all the time. They only are able to hire people that are pretty new and they don't feel like they're, I mean, basically like our story again. I was like, well, let me just be really honest with you. You have no pediatric experience. I think you've got great other experience. We could train you in pediatrics. I'd be happy to have you in for a shadow experience to see if it's something that you might be interested in. But this is our PRN rate. This is the current, like everything you said is where we are. So you're going to be trading what you're looking for in a new job isn't going to be here. Like we have the same thing. Like that's just being here. And she was like, that's super helpful to hear. I can't, went on and on about how like that was like very helpful for her to that transparency. And then, but I'm like, it's funny. Like, there's several people that are just looking and it's like, it's me funny if we all just like switch jobs and it's like, oh, wow, look, here we are again.
Yeah, that would be
not
great.
really. But,
Switch seats. Yeah.
But I mean,
I can't help but wonder what other application of your talents is there? Like what other, and I know you love nutrition, so I'm not suggesting even leaving that field, but more like where does that fit otherwise? And I don't know, where'd you go to college? I can't remember.
Kentucky.
Okay. I was just thinking even like the U of M people, like a lot of times, like they'll know of other applications because they're sending nutritionists out. So even like networking that way to go like, when your nutritionist graduate, where do they go? What are they doing?
I'm
saying like where in general are they going? What roles exist out there? Because I think probably things continue to evolve and there's a need for nutrition in lots of places. And so I think what other applications are there that we don't even know about yet? Like maybe there's some other options, but anyway, so I think maybe just exploring those. So let's close with this.
Okay.
Oh, and I will say this too. What?
Yeah.
No, Seika.
I'm going to ask Wellspring if they're looking to hire a staff dietitian. Okay. Continue on.
That'd be great. So, when we started today, you obviously had some things that were kind of top of mind with all the, staff meeting, and Amanda, you've got a good plan in place to handle that today, hopefully. I'll look forward to hearing about how it goes when we get to connect next. But, and I think just as you think through, what we go to next, I think you want to think through, like, do I want to go into our next coaching session with a plan for like, okay, how am I moving forward out of here? Or do I want to go focus on the other things, which is how do I grow emotional intelligence and create better processes and systems while I'm here? So I think, and you don't have to decide today, but like, I know those are your three things that we want to keep working towards. So.
Okay. Maybe, midterm between now and next week, I can like update you.
Yeah.
So we know where it's going.
Perfect. And let me know if you think of it. I'd love to know how your conversation with Brandon goes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Okay, see you later.
Bye.